All right, City Council meeting for April 18th is now in order. We're going to stand for the invocation by Councilperson Mota, and then we'll remain standing for the pledge to the flag.
We gather to make decisions for our community. May we use only our best skills and judgment, keeping ourselves impartial and neutral as we consider the merits and pitfalls of each matter that is placed before us, and always act in accordance with what is best for our community and our fellow citizens. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Hanlon, I see all council members are present and our city controller is here, and obviously you are here, and we have our city solicitor, Mr. Cooper. Welcome. All right, courtesy of the floor. Open to the public for items that are not on the agenda. Sir.
David Geschel, West Wabash Street, Allentown. First of all, the Leonard Buck banquet is on for tomorrow night. Anybody that got the bogus email, it is not canceled, it is on tomorrow night. Number two, I believe it was October or November when we were at the council meeting. The city was going to repair the decking on the Lehigh Street Bridge, number one. And then number two, they were going to go over and do the single lane bridge on 2nd Street. I see that Lehigh Street has been done now for a couple weeks, but I've seen nothing happen on the single lane bridge on 2nd Street, and I was wondering how that's going.
We might be able to get an answer for you right away.
Okay, we had proposed a certain size bridge, a certain construction to DEP, which we have to apply for permits. They had requested that we revise, not the width or anything of it, but the actual use of the wing walls and what's currently there. We were going to use some of what was currently there in our new structure and not have to do as much work actually in the stream area. However, DEP requested that we modify it to have actually new walls prior to putting the deck on, so we're actually done with the design and we're submitting it back to DEP.
Thank you, Craig. Thank you. Hope to see you tomorrow night.
Dennis Pearson, president of the Allentown Crime Watch. Still a property owner for a few more days. 942 Stillman Street. I can repeat what David Keschel said about the Leonard Buck banquet, and I'm really excited to, and I'm not going to mention those who will get the award, but we're really excited to present the Ben Gress Award for Distinguished Officer, the Leonard Buck Award for Citizen of the Year, and a new award called the Robert Ring Distinguished Neighborhood of Merit. That'll be exciting, a new thing to do. For me, it will be exciting in that it'll be my third time emceeing this event, but a little sadness there because it could be my last time emceeing an event. My presidency ends in December, and since the primary of 2017 accelerated the fact that, well, in a sense, in my mind, the primary of 2017, in a sense, voted me out of Allentown and Lehigh County. My wife would have moved into Allentown or Lehigh County had I won, but she has a nice home on a mountain in East Penn Township, on top of the mountain, and that's where I'll be.
Yes, sir.
John Lecce, and I just live at 935 North 17th Street, and then I just wonder what has happened to the Allentown bamboo law, because my neighbor on 929, he has actually done some excellent work on his front home, but he has done very little to solve the bamboo program. And right on right there on 16 and Whitehall Street, there's a guy who also has the bamboo, but he actually he is with the city laws of bamboo, and he also has a concrete barrier, but then he also has a fence all the way on the length of his property and his neighbor's property. So I am just concerned about why one neighbor compiles, he actually goes with the regulation of the Allentown bamboo law, and also the other person, he doesn't do anything.
You're talking about the person that lives next to you that doesn't do anything?
Yeah, well, he does, he cuts some of it down, and then every time it rains, a lot of the leaves from the bamboos actually fall over into my property. I was actually considering maybe the city should actually hire some bamboo bears, just to have a feast on the bamboo.
That's a very novel idea. I don't know what we would do with it. I think the mayor's shaking his head yes. I think he thinks that's a good idea. But I'm sure the administration will have somebody go out and check it. And we understand that you were the poster child for the bamboo ordinance here. So if it's not being complied with, we'll send somebody out.
Okay.
I know that Tom Harper was working on that,
Right.
and I do know that the state did actually enact a law themselves on the bamboo.
Okay.
So there is some question yet as far as what supersedes, but we are working with them to try to come up with an answer and take care of that for you, sir.
All right, thank you. I just also want to thank to the city council for doing a fine job. And I hope I don't have to come here often, but in case if I do, I am a long-time die-hard German. German, I actually came from Austria, Europe. So I am always happy to see you all, and I think you are doing a great job for the city of Allentown. And I was just walking down Hamilton Street, and I also see a number of good improvements. And so I am actually happy to see you all, and I wish you the best in the near future.
Thank you very much, sir.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Lauren Golden. I'm here representing the Delaware and Lehigh National Heritage Corridor. Our offices are in Easton, Pennsylvania, but the D&L Trail runs through Allentown, through Canal Park, and then northward. I've brought some trail maps. One of them shows the Lehigh Valley region, which is the D&L as a spine, and then all of the connecting trails throughout the Lehigh Valley. And then the other map is the entire D&L Trail from Wilkes-Barre down to Bristol. So the reason I brought both of them is because the DNL Trail is part of something called the 9/11 Memorial Trail. It's a trail that's sort of patched together between the Pentagon, the Flight 93 site near Pittsburgh, and the World Trade Center in New York City. So currently, for the first time, the brave folks on the 9/11 Memorial Trail Committee are bicycling all 1,000 or 1,200 miles, and they'll actually be using, officially, as part of the route, the DNL Trail, and they'll be coming through Allentown on Sunday. You all are welcome to join. It's an open ride. They'll be starting in Weisport, and you can find the Weisport trailhead on one of those maps. And they'll be riding 44 miles total, all the way to Easton on Sunday. They'll start at 10 a.m. and we figure they'll finish at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. If you're not up for a full 44 miles, then I'd invite you to stop by Buckboyle Park. They'll be stopping at about 1 o'clock, I believe they'll be arriving, and where we've scheduled a escort with the Allentown Fire Department. So the fire department will actually be escorting the riders down Front Street, across the Hamilton Street Bridge, and down to Canal Park to sort of celebrate, commemorate. I know there are some former police officers on council, so just wanted to extend the invite to you all and give you the trail maps. So that's it, thanks.
Mr. Hendricks is an avid bike rider. He might want to do those 44 miles.
I got voluntold for the day. There's a detour between Northampton and Allentown that's a little tricky because the trail's not complete. No thanks to PennDOT and all the bridges that they're fixing.
That's okay. Thank you.
Good evening, Claudia Steckel, 423 North 27th Street. My concern is about the relocation, potential relocation of the post office issue, and I'm wondering whether the city, in an effort to possibly keep the current post office site, has decided whether it will consider possibly buying the post office building and then leasing back the necessary portion that the post office would need for its retail operation. I'm just wondering whether it's something being considered or whether you've decided there's no way we're even going to entertain that.
It's nothing that's come to the attention of City Council. I can't speak for the administration, but I don't know where the money would come from.
Thank you, if I can speak, Mr. President. There's nothing, Claudia, that's come to us yet. There's no, it hasn't even been really decided whether, it's for sale, okay, obviously, but, but I did make a statement to the paper, and I stand by that statement. It's of great historical value to the city of Allentown. And I did speak to a developer today, not about the post office per se, but I did bring it up in a conversation. The base floor of the post office, I feel is a rock, okay? What we do with the upper floors like that, there's room for negotiation, but there's been no talk of the city purchasing the post office.
Well, in light of that comment and just that nothing's really been discussed, I guess, within the city about it, I wanted to read something that somewhat alarmed me about the post office relocation process. And how much time? I don't have much time. This is from the Inspector General's Office of the United States Postal Service, and it says that the relocation process consists of the concept study, the public notification, and the site selection. And there can be comments and appeals, and we know that period for comment is up this coming April 27th. But it says here that comment on the final site selection after the site selection is told to us, which would be after the appeals period, that can be done. But appealing a final site selection, once the post office, suppose they come back after the comment period and they say, oh, we've decided we want this site. If the site was not, if that particular site was not discussed during that public notification meeting, then we can't appeal it. And that sort of, I think, is concerning. You can't appeal it if it wasn't, if that site was not discussed in the.
So if they don't tell us, we can't appeal it.
Well, no, if it hadn't been discussed during that meeting that already occurred, then we can't appeal it. So I just find that concerning, so I thought that if there's any thought to wanting to keep it where it is, which would mean appealing the plan to relocate, that should almost, they should hear noises about that the city might want to do that before the comment period is over. That, I don't know if I'm interpreting this right, but.
I'm not sure either, but I know when the young lady was here from the Postal Service, there were, council and public did address some concerns of keeping the post office, and I think their plan is to keep it within a mile or a half a mile, something like that. I think a mile tops, but they want to keep it as close as possible. Which doesn't say for the building, you know what I mean? But,
right.
But and I agree with the mayor. There have good people that have shown interest in the building, so hopefully.
I just didn't want us to be caught short on something where they come back and say, we've made this decision on this site selection that maybe we don't know at this point where that is, and then we couldn't appeal it if we didn't like it, according to this. And this is, if you go to the United States Post Office Office of Inspector General web page, it spells it out there. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is David McGuire, 223 North 19th Street, Allentown. Say hello to friends here. I have 3 items, but first to acknowledge for myself the very tone that is set by having this branch of government, and the absent for years branch of government. We have all 3 together. I think that's a good sign for the future. I have 3 things. First, the stormwater fee, we now are collecting it. There's a clear pattern for what it's to be used for. I think it is incumbent upon, excuse me, the administration and city council, however, to make absolutely sure to put into language an absolute way that that money will not be used for anything except for that specific purpose. We have seen numerous examples in the past several years of money finding its way from this or that nook and cranny of the budget. This has been a controversial thing. I actually support it, as you know. But given the corroded atmosphere of the body politic on finances and other things within City Hall, I think it would be imperative that council, working with the administration, come up with an ironclad kind of way of protecting that money. Number 2, I urge council, hire your own attorney and hire your own financial resource. This is experience should have shown over the last 4 years why council needs its own independent access to the law. Number 3, excuse me, council last year instituted a new thing in the budget, $150,000 for cultural institutions. It is now almost a third of the way through the year. Nothing has been done on it. The reasons so was up until the mayor's resignation, the initiative on doing something related was in his purview. He obviously had other things on his mind, but the fact is, a third of the way through. I urge council and I urge the administration to please do something about this now. Our institutions don't need to get dribbles of money in November and December. Now is when institutions need it. That concludes my comments for the matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McGuire. Good to see you here.
Good evening, Ms. Beatty Harris, 1817 17th Street Southwest, Allentown. I first want to thank Honorable Mayor O'Connell and City Council for approving my appointment to the Human Relations Commission. I'm coming before you because I'm concerned about what's going on with the Human Relations Commission. I was given orientation on 1/10/18 by Ishmael Arsalat when I was appointed from the school board, and he gave me orientation to be on the Human Relations Commission. My name was put on the website as a Human Relations Commissioner, and it was there until 3/13/18, where it was taken down. And on that day, 3/14/18, he had a meeting with the commissioners, Donna Foster, Inga Williams, Vinnie Steiner, and Shallon Buskirk, and appointed Shallon as the chair of the HRC, and Inga as the treasurer. And at that night, I was also here at the city council meeting. They had that meeting, I was not invited. As I was coming out of the meeting, they were coming out also. And I was confused and trying to figure out why they were having a meeting and I wasn't there. And I was told that I was no longer a commissioner, and that Jessica Ortiz was no longer a commissioner because her term had expired, and apparently I had expired, but I had just had orientation in January. I don't understand that. I'm trying to figure out how that happened. So prior to that, on 2/27, Jessica Ortiz and I had a meeting with Councilwoman Moto and Mike Hamlin, the city clerk, concerning the things that were going on in the HRC, some things that we needed to get clear and to have direction on how to run the HRC correctly, and our concerns that were going on with the fact that we didn't have enough people to have a quorum because we were not able to handle any of our cases that were coming to us because we didn't have enough commissioners. And that was handled by Mike and also Councilwoman Moto, and that was given great results. I'm just trying to figure out why was I singled out and my commission was taken away from me, and then I had to go through a whole thing with the ASD board secretary had to write a letter stating that I was approved by the Board of Education directors to serve on the board, even though I had already given orientation. And also, because of the way everything that's going on right now, I called the PA Human Relations Board. They said because of everything that's going on and the slight chaos, that we should have handled this better, that we should have had appointed a task force to handle the situation that's going on with the Human Relations Commission.
Ms. Harris, there was a lot of turmoil going on, and
beforehand,
we had a bunch. I'm going to defer to Ms. Alpha, yes. But we have a bunch of appointments that are going to be coming up very shortly.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
Yes.
Number one, we don't need a state task force coming to Allentown. We'll take care of our own.
No, that was
I'm not finished. Okay. We don't need a state task force coming in Allentown. We'll take care of Allentown problems ourselves. You are on the Human Relations Commission. You are the Allentown School District appointee.
Right.
Ms. Alpha, am I correct?
You're right.
Okay, I don't know if you're getting that misinterpretation, but you, Phoebe Harris, are on the Human Relations Commission. You're the appointee from Allentown School Board.
Yes, but I was taken off.
That's impossible. You just got off.
I was taken off. I was told, it was after that meeting on 3/14/18, I was told that I was no longer on the commission.
Who told you this?
Who told you that?
Ms. Harris, who told you this?
The people who came out of the
Who were the
meeting,
people?
it was Donna Foster, Inga Williams, Shannon, Kirk,
Okay,
and Ben.
yeah, let me cut it short. They don't make that decision.
No.
The mayor and city council make that decision. You were the appointment from the school board,
Yes.
just like we had the two from the recreation commission.
Correct.
From the school board, and there was an issue there too. That's resolved, it's moving forward, so.
You're on.
You're on, there's a bunch of appointments coming up, I think next council meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay, and then also I was told that we are now moving, because we did not vote on this, we are now moving our meetings from Wednesday to Thursdays. That was given to me by Shannon Barnes Kirk as well, and that's the school board.
Did you have a meeting with them?
I did not have a meeting with them, but we did discuss moving the meeting from a Wednesday to a Thursday for better attendees.
Well, I understand them because they have.
My conversation is over with Ms. Harris.
All right.
And then the thing is too, you know, it's easier because you might want to come to council meetings, or we may want to go to some of your meetings, and it's a conflict on Wednesday, so, that's one of the reasons.
As far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's the first Thursday of the month. The school board meetings are the second, the third, and the fourth Thursday of the month. I could be wrong, but I think I'm not wrong. I think you have education the second, your building and finance the third, and your regular school board meeting. So we purposely went to the first Thursday of the month because you don't have a scheduled meeting that month.
Was that voted on by the commissioners, or by, you made that decision?
I made that decision.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hello, Jen Keschel, Wabash Street, Allentown. Thank you for listening to me. The person, Ishmael, Arcadia, I think his name is, took over Phyllis Alexander's position, who used to, like the neighborhood coordinator, I think it was called. Long story short, Ishmael does not come to neighborhood meetings, as Phyllis Alexander did. He came to maybe 2 President's Council's meetings, and maybe one of our meetings. I don't know about the other neighborhood groups, but he's not doing what he's paid for, in my opinion. If he's doing neighborhood liaison, as Phyllis Alexander did, she was there and on top of it and helping us. So I was just wondering, I don't know if he's had anything to do with that, or if you could.
I see the mayor diligently taking some notes, jotting some notes down there. I'm sure that'll be addressed.
Okay, because he doesn't show up. Thank you.
Mike White, 734 Nelson Street. I have a question about all of these garages that have sprung up all over Allentown and leave 30, 40 cars parked on a property in the street that are in disrepair. Is it illegal to park on the street?
Yeah, do you have any particulars for us?
Just drive around anywhere. Go over the east side and drive from the Iron Pigs to Irving Street, from Union Boulevard North. You got cars everywhere.
There was an issue a year ago, and I suggested that they call the parking authority. And at the time, Tamara took care of it immediately. No, they can't, people can't just be parking on the streets illegally. So if you call.
I did call. I called for one that was parked in front of my house for a month.
You did?
Nobody did nothing about it. So we finally went down and directed the guy who owned the place.
All right, do you want to take
You know, you got cops driving around town, or actually sit around town, and I know it. They can be driving through these streets. Look at them, ticket them. Put the ticket on the car, get them off the street. Their stuff doesn't have license plates, inspection stickers.
Well, if you don't mind, if you give the city clerk your name and phone number, I'll get back to you. Let me do it, the gentleman over there, yeah.
We can look at the retirees list and get
Yeah.
If you give me the streets and so on and so forth.
Well, it's just go, just drive through and look at, the south side's the same way, the east side's the same way, north side's the same way. The west end's not too bad yet, but it's moving that way.
And I think Assistant Chief Struss from the police department is here. Yes, I do see her. So I'm sure she'll address that with her personnel too.
And I'll address it with the
And
parking
she's on the
authority.
parking authority board,
Okay.
so she'll address it with them. Thank you.
Do your job.
Good evening.
Hey, Jeremy Warmkessel, President of the Allentown Firefighters. It was a year ago this month, that's what prompted me to come, that we came here and we discussed the status of our fleet and where we were. I told you at that time I would give you an update, and just recently, according to Chief Laubach at a recent labor management meeting, the purchase orders went through to Pierce, so 2 new pumpers were being added per the budget that we discussed in the fall. In addition to that, it seems that the state grant money is moving forward at left appropriations. I got an email just earlier tonight. So the money was released by the state out of appropriations, so it's just a matter of getting that to here, and that's just a pass-through for the 3rd pumper that I didn't even discuss earlier. So that'll give us somewhat of a stable ground. I put this together for you quickly today. It's something that was born out of us not believing what we were being told by the administration. So we kept a daily log of the vehicles that were in and out of service. I gave it to you. You can cruise it in the future. But basically the big points were in March of last year, we put a piece of equipment out of service and told they wouldn't put it back into service, that it was going to cost too much to fix. At that time, that led to April, us coming here, which led to the demonstration model that was talked about earlier by people from the audience. That came in July. So we went from having 11 pieces of equipment in our fleet to 13. So as you move forward, if you look through after July, when you see the very bottom, percentage of fleet available, where it is yellow, that is okay. We're okay. Green is really good. All the stuff that you see is left black. If we would not have purchased the new aerial demonstration piece from Pierce, and we would have not put the piece of equipment back in service, we would have been left in pickup trucks a lot up until just a couple days ago. We routinely, and it's of no fault to anyone except the age and status of the equipment, the way it was neglected. But that seems to be changing. So the one thing I can say going forward is hopefully your successors and my successor won't have to meet and talk about this in April 10 years from now. So this is definitely going to put us on solid ground going forward as far as the engines go. But if we let them degrade and we don't do anything about it and we spend money in other places as opposed to public safety when it is a necessity, and I heard someone speak earlier to an emergency, unfortunately it was an emergency for us at that point. My first responsibility as president is the health and welfare of my guys. My first responsibility as lieutenant of the fire department is the health and welfare of the citizens. Typically, I don't have to deal with those two at the same time. And last April, that came to a head. So, unfortunately, because of the lack of communication with the office of mayor over the prior 5 to 7 years, we were left no other avenue. We went to social media, print, TV, everyone knows, we turned into a circus. That's why every meeting we come to, I still hear references to fire trucks, so we must have done a pretty good job of making you aware of the problem. So I told you then I would come and I would give you an update. That's where we are. We should have all 3 of those from the way I understand from the chief at the labor management meeting. 2 of them are already being built as soon as the state money gets released, which now that it's out of appropriations, which is a huge thanks to Senator Pat Brown, by the way. He did a lot of work on behalf of the Allentown Fire Department at the state level, and that money got released. So it should be here shortly, and it should be moving forward to getting us the 3rd one. All probably by the end to early next year. They take a long time to build. And unlike the demonstration piece that was discussed earlier, when it comes here, it'll pretty much be ready to go. That's great. I mean, other than, we have to put our radios in and get it striped usually, but as far as manipulating the actual working capabilities of it, they'll come here prepared to do what they're supposed to do. So I just want to give you the update, let you guys know where we're at. If anybody has any questions, I would answer them. If not, that's it.
We appreciate the update and glad to hear it. I think Mr. Robinson has a question or a statement, I'm not sure, but either or you'll.
It's a baker's dozen. So, it is a question which is directed to both you, Mr. Warmkessel, and to the administration, which is, it's great that we're moving in this direction, but my biggest concern is that The one thing that led to this was not having a vehicle replacement plan for these engines. And my concern is that since we're replacing 3 in one shot, if we don't have a good replacement plan in place, we could wind up here again in 10 years. So if that's not already been done, I would just highly encourage the administration to really look at putting that in place.
From what I'm told at our labor management meetings, Mr. Messinger and the chiefs and everybody involved, they have looked into having a replacement put in place, and hopefully they'll stick to that. I think these guys definitely will stick to it because they don't want to go through the same process.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you,
Morris.
Mr. President.
And just a clarification, Mr. Robinson, when you said we, you meant whoever happens to be on council, correct, at that time, 10 years from now?
If I'm here in 10 years, please, just someone take me out back.
At this point, again, the trigger went off on an audit of the Conterra operation, which was one of the reasons why we had part of the fiasco with the trucks going down. So if the council could ask Mr. Glazier to audit the way Conterra is fixing the trucks and why it led to this, and more or less give us an idea what's the matching funds on the grant, so that none of the money that we have to use for something else gets moved from that operation when no one's looking. So if we could audit that operation and find out the clause that's in the contract where part of the money that's not spent or goes to the different risk management and all this juggling that was going on at the time is audited and is legal, whether it's a police car or a personal car or the vehicles that other people drive. That issue is still open. So the savings of having that done in-house and having the council put pressure on the administration, the past administration, to fix these trucks, whether it was the engine, computer, or whatever it was, I think that's something we have to look into, because there's money that gets turned back to the city on money that Conterra doesn't spend, 70-30, and why is that in the contract? So that's my question again.
Thank you.
Council, thank you. We can start. I have a loud enough voice. My name is Mike Gozer. I work for Network Building and Consulting, and we are the consultants right now for AT&T for site acquisition, planning and zoning, and project management. Right now, I have in process for AT&T the project for small cell sites, and what that is, it's a small cell unit, which is 37 feet above ground, and is placed strategically within the cities. In Allentown right now, I've got 6 that can be placed within the Allentown city right-of-way. Now, your packets that I give you are very preliminary. Second page shows you what the antenna looks like. Third page, what the radio equipment looks like. And the last pages are some photo sims of those designed for the city of Wilkes-Barre. So my reason for being here this evening is to ask you how I proceed to acquire a lease or a master lease agreement with the city of Allentown. We do pay rent, and it is a long-term lease. And basically, there is now no out-of-pocket expense for the city of Allentown, with the exception of your attorney reviews, or attorney review. So I'd like to know how to proceed, because this will bring income to the city of Allentown. It won't bring you the thousands upon thousands of dollars a month that the carriers will pay for the macro sites of 12 antennas, a 20 by 12 footprint, or a 150-foot structure. These are small. These are very low power. very, and low power, what I mean, they have a range, an omnidirectional antenna of only 1,000 to 2,000, maximum 3,000 feet, depending on where they are. The design is strictly as a capacity issue to tie into the macro sites within the area. And right now, there are 6 that I have designated that are actually on Allentown's right of way. You can see the addresses here. And this is for the 2017 bill, which is slated for 2018, and I have more coming down the line when they're released by the radio frequency engineers for 2019 and 2020. So basically, I'd like to know how to proceed with you if you're, and number one, first of all, if you're really interested in a lease, in a lease or a master lease agreement, site license agreements, or, and then from there, how I proceed with you, and who would be my contact with the city council so that I can have someone to speak with directly, and from there negotiate the lease terms, bring it back to you, or have that person bring it back to you, and from there get a signed agreement.
Well, I guess the contact person is going to be Mike Hanlon, but we don't negotiate the contracts. You would do that with the administration, and then they would present it to city council.
That's fine.
Approval or not.
Okay, for a contact person, that's fine.
Who would you?
I was talking to the mayor.
Yeah, I was going to say, who would you suggest we contact? Mr. Messenger? Yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask you a question, sir?
Yes.
You say you have 6 in Allentown?
6 so far. Yes, mister, so far.
On Allentown property?
They would be on Allentown, they would be on Allentown property.
Where are they now?
They are not.
They're not.
Yes, these are brand new units.
I thought you said there were already 6 in Allentown.
That's in reference to 6 planned small cell sites or nodes. That's to this date, and there are others coming. But no, nothing is built.
Okay, administration will be in touch.
Okay, sounds good. Gentlemen, ladies, administration, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ken Upton, 214 North St. Cloud, represent the Allentown Center Association. Real quick, the one gentleman talks about cars parked all over the place and stuff like that. Yeah, I thought repeatedly called into the city about the fact that it appears that Hannah's Garage on 2nd Street in Cedar cut down the no parking signs, and now use both sides of the road. Every single sign is cut. It's, you know, and I've brought this up 6 times already. So, that's 2nd Street, 2nd and Cedar. There's a small stretch from Cedar to actually Sumner Avenue. Every single one was cut down. I think the city did a lot better job than what looks like a hacksaw. Seriously though. And not to mention all the cars that they park there on the illegal side, most of them are out of inspection or have no license plates on them. You know, it seems like the parking authority will go in there, maybe pick up 2 cars, they behave for about, I don't know, a day. And then they load it up. One guy who would not tell me his name across the street that works at the company there says he in fact seen others than the city cut down signs. So why he doesn't really reference it, I don't know, but whatever. You look at them now, it's amazing that every single one of them is cut and, you know, cut down. So anyway, my main point was recently an Urban Institute report shows that urban blight, defined as a substandard housing, abandoned buildings, vacant lots, is a major stressor. Simply having a roof over your head is insufficient for the residents' well-being and having a safe place to live. The Center for American Progress estimates that about 6 million homes have physical infrastructure issues. 6.8 million homes have high levels of radon. 17 million homes have indoor allergens, and 23+ million homes have lead-based issues. These substandard housing conditions lead to adverse health outcomes such as lung cancer, asthma, and negative cognitive and behavioral effects, especially for children. Where one sleeps, though, is not the only influence on the health outcomes. Neighborhoods filled with vacant or abandoned properties are linked to higher rates of mental distress, chronic illness, sexually transmitted diseases, and unhealthy habits. The broken window theory proposes that the vacant properties create a climate of social and psychological disorder that attracts criminal activity and violence and becomes a breeding ground for vermin. Researchers have also noted that the detrimental effect vacant properties have on social capital. Lowered social capital makes it difficult for community members to advocate for their one-owned neighborhood. It is a vicious cycle. Uncared for space makes many neighborhoods unattractive, resulting in less investment in the community. Additionally, crimes that may occur on or around this property will encourage a feeling of helplessness. Residents will live increasingly isolated lives and will be less likely to step in and help prevent crime. In one study alone conducted in the city of Philadelphia, residents thought that vacant land affected community's well-being by overshadowing any positive aspects that do happen in the community, contributing to the fractures between neighbors and attracting crime and making residents fearful. There is no simple solution to the housing issue that is currently facing 100 million plus Americans. Affordability of housing is often the root of the issue, though. Residents accept substandard housing because it's available for rent or mortgage they can manage. An estimated 26% of renters spend more than 50% of their income on housing. In Pennsylvania, that actually is near 65%. Well above the 30% that is typically acceptable to spend on housing. Even if substandard housing and vacant lots were remedied, the expensive housing costs can siphon money from other life essentials such as healthy foods and the means of work. Cities across the United States have undertaken efforts to address urban blight. More than 6,000 vacant properties in Detroit have been transformed into urban gardens. Philadelphia's Land Care Management Program, which is being held in the United States, has created green spaces and fenced in previously vacant lots. A study of Philadelphia's program demonstrates that its effectiveness even extends into reducing gun violence. The renovation of lots resulted in a 5% reduction in gun violence, and replacing the broken windows in abandoned houses resulted in a 39% decrease. Every dollar invested in improving urban blight resulted in $26 less spent on the gun violence cost. The bottom line, blight affects everything: education, crime, poverty, health issues, community involvement, one's mental state, the tax base, and perception of what people see of our city. The last administration didn't care. I surely hope this administration does.
Thank you.
So I would like to thank him for speaking.
Please come up.
I'd like to thank him for speaking because what I have to say nicely dovetails what he talked about. First off, I want to let you all know that you need to update your org chart. It still shows...
Your name, please, first.
I'm sorry, Erin Keller, 1934 West Tillman. You need to update your org chart. It still shows the previous occupant, and that's, I think, a little bit confusing. It's on your city website. It does not show...
They have a little bit of issue with the website right now because of the malware.
Okay,
Yes.
okay, gotcha.
So that may be the reason, but I'm sure it'll be updated, yes.
Okay. So first off, I would like to suggest that we need to have another conversation about what's going on with affordable housing and homelessness in Allentown. It is shameful that our warming center closed early. I see that Mr. Riley gave money back to the city for a study that was done involving some buildings that were to believe in the NIS, and it went back into the general fund, $25,000. That money should be paid as soon as possible to the gentleman at the warming shelter who's waiting for his $22,568. He still hasn't got it. He shouldn't have to wait for his grant to get the money. It's outrageous. Okay. So I also want to talk a little bit about transparency here. They talked about forensic transparency when it comes to the city finances. We need to have some forensic transparency when it comes to what's happening with housing, the NIS, luxury offices, and mixed income and affordable housing in the city of Allentown. It's a terrible irony that the previous occupant came from Chicago and that was his specialty, and yet what we have downtown now are luxury units, luxury offices, and a movement of people from one place to the other. I think that we need to take another look at what's happening in the NIS. I think we need to rethink how we are doing and dealing with blight and issues of homelessness. I think we need to make it a question of justice and equity, that all of the people in the city, long-term residents who are experiencing the blight that he discussed, Poverty actually shortens your genes. If you grow up in a neighborhood that's poor, if you grow up in a neighborhood with broken windows, with violence, it actually shows up as defects in your genes, okay? So we're talking about trauma of poverty, and we have a serious homelessness issue yet, and it is to our shame. I admit to buying into, I love the new buildings. I loved it. I worked in 8 City Center. Every day I saw it, it went up, my heart felt so good, and I can't tell you how crushed I am when I look now, and I look back and see that half of our constituency has not been represented in Allentown. That is just a question of, we think these luxury units and these luxury offices are gonna save our downtown. They are not. And we already are conceived of as being a state or a city that is corrupt. So we need to revisit this. You need to revisit your 5-year plan. You need to look at mixed income housing. You need to look at light remediation for the people who have still continued to anchor the neighborhoods downtown. And before one single piece of property is taken by public domain down by the waterfront, that needs to be discussed with everyone. Any questions?
Thank you. Anybody else for courtesy of the floor? Seeing no one. Mr. Hanlon, old business. Any old business?
Yes, I have some. Just a follow-up to, thank you, Mr. President, follow-up to a public safety issue, or a public meeting issue, I should say. On January 2nd, I got asked a question tonight again about the take-home vehicles. I'm currently working on a financial breakdown, if you will, of all the vehicles from the different departments. Some were reluctant to give them to me for various reasons. They will include the cost right down to an oil change. So hopefully I will have that within the next couple of weeks, and recommend Councilman Hendricks to set up a public safety meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Zuckel. Ms. Zappa.
In business. As far as appointments for committees and boards, we have been working with the mayor for the past week, and we really have we filled a lot of them. And council is going to go through all the applications, and I think it's going to be the second, right? Next week we're going to. So we know a lot of them. We're working on it. Just wanted to let you know update on all that.
For those of you planning on attending the meeting on the second, pack a lunch, please. Since we went to follow-ups from previous meetings from old business, any other old business before we go back to follow-ups from previous meetings? Mr. Robinson.
Mr. President, thank you. I just want to thank you from your stewardship when you were acting mayor, and Mayor O'Connell and the administration for this. It is definite that the 2 budgeted paramedics are going to start the first week of May. They're going through it. They're being hired from the part-time ranks. So we are finally moving forward with that. I know you were the one who signed the initial paperwork, and Mayor O'Connell's been pushing this pretty heavily since he took office. So I just want to say thank you to everyone involved with this, and we're getting to a point where we're starting to get closer to where we need to be.
Thank you very much. I think it was kind of self-serving on Mayor O'Connell's part and mine because of our age and the stressors in that position. We want to make sure there's plenty of help. So. Okay, communications. No communications. We did receive council did receive the nomination from the mayor of Attorney Thomas Trott for city solicitor. We'll be setting a confirmation hearing for May 2nd at 5 p.m. Also, we received a letter from Attorney Eric Schock, I believe he's the attorney, indicating the zoning request filed on September 25th September 25th of 2017 related to Barnes Lane has been withdrawn. And the only other thing I see on there is a proclamation for the FBI, and that's in a folder, and that's been authored by a couple of some of the council people, and some have chosen not to sign. Other than that, we'll move on to reports from committees.
I'm going to read the proclamation if you don't mind, Mr. President.
You want to read it? Go ahead.
Resolved by the Council of the City of Allentown that whereas federal agents raided Allentown City Hall and the mayor's home on July 2nd, 2015. And whereas the mayor was found guilty on March 1st, 2018 on 47 of 54 charges, including conspiracy, bribery, attempted extortion, mail-and wire fraud, and lying to the FBI in a scheme to solicit campaign donations from law firms and vendors in exchange for city contracts. And whereas the conviction was a result of the excellent work and dedication of FBI Special Agent Scott Curtis, the lead investigator since April of 2013, and prosecutors Tony Zork and Michelle Morgan. And now therefore be it resolved that Allentown City Council, on behalf of the residents of Allentown, on Wednesday, April 18, 2018, hereby thanks the FBI and prosecutors for helping rid the city of corruption and restore integrity and honesty in government and in delivery of government services. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Zucco. Okay, now we can move on to reports from committee. Budget and Finance.
Budget and Finance. Thank you, Mr. President. The Budget and Finance Committee met this evening, and we discussed a couple of bills, Bill 12 and 14, and we will be voting on them this evening. In addition, we discussed the January 3, we call it January 3 financial report, and also the March financial report for the city. I also announced that on May 2nd at 6:30 p.m., a gentleman by the name of Jamar Kelly from the State Department of Community and Economic Development will speak to City Council and the Mayor on their grant program relating to the early intervention program and long-term financial planning. And that's going to happen again on May 2nd at 6:30. So I encourage everybody to come because we're going to be talking about this program, and it costs the city not a penny. And we used to before, and it was helpful. The issue is trying to move the city forward, making sure that our city is financially solvent. That's all for now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Garidi. Community and Economic Development, Mr. Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met last Thursday after we took a tour of the Casa Guadalupe Center. We forwarded 2 items from that meeting to tonight's agenda, and I will speak about those later. We have not scheduled another meeting yet, but I would just quickly like to thank my fellow member of the committee, Councilperson Garidi, who is the chair of the board at Casa Guadalupe and was kind enough to set up this tour for us. And the committee, along with Councilman Hendricks and you, Mr. President, was able to take a tour. This is a fantastic community center that does a lot of great work, from health clinics to something that they just started very recently, which is a free legal clinic that they're doing, which is a fantastic thing to have, and a number of other issues, or a number of other programs that they run. And I have to say quite plainly, Mr. Greedy, the cleanest commercial kitchen I have ever seen in my life. So, by all means, I hope that we should start using their kitchen as a representation of what a perfect commercial kitchen should look like when we go out and inspect.
So, thank you. I relate that to the staff.
But just thank you very much. We will be doing more of these tours over the year, looking at everything ranging from other nonprofits to construction projects in the city to existing neighborhoods and neighborhood groups. So there's going to be a lot of work that we do. We're looking to set up a meeting hopefully in May to tour some of the Sacred Heart facilities and some of the things that Sacred Heart and St. Luke's are looking to do with that facility. We'll let you know when that date comes. But again, thank you very much, Mr. Greedy, for organizing that for us. And thank you very much, Mr. President.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. And I concur that it was a very worthwhile tour, and a lot of good things going on down there at Casa. Thanks. Human Resources Administration appointments, Ms. Hoffa.
The committee has not met since the last council meeting. A future meeting has been scheduled for May 2nd. Prior to the council meeting, to review 2 bills, ranking privilege and direct report bills. We receive an update on the personnel study. And like I said, this is, we're gonna fill a lot of appointments that have been vacant for a long time. So we will have a full schedule on May 2nd. That'll be it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you very much. Parks and Recreation, Ms. Moga.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has not met since the last council meeting. A future meeting has not been scheduled.
Thank you very much. Public Safety, Mr. Hendricks.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee has not met since last meeting. A meeting will be scheduled shortly, as my colleague had stated. One of the items on that will be the fleet policy regarding public safety vehicles.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hendricks. Public Works, Mr. Zukel.
Thank you, Mr. President. The committee met this evening and we discussed